Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot. Oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls. I am Patricia Baker, and I am here with PK. PK, how are you tonight?
Fabulous. Like, what could be better than what we're going through today?
I don't know. Nothing.
Well, could it be that the spring equinox has something to do with it?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. It feels good.
Wow.
This particular equinox has some unique additional support from the unique astrological world. You know, ancient people understood the importance of changing the seasons. We don't always with that, but the spring equinox used to be considered the new year for many parts of Europe. Did you know that?
I
I'm surprised. I did not know that either.
Yeah.
But Aries is the beginning of the astrological new year and indicates endings and beginnings. So the moon will shift into Leo, which is a fire sign. And you can use this astrological influence with the spring equinox to set new intentions and plant new seeds and get things laid out to manifest the better stuff in your life. I think that's a good way to go.
I love it.
Start new projects and contribute for new possibilities. Excellent time to get all this stuff taken care of. We're going to feel like it's rebirth. That's what I like about it.
We all need that, don't we?
Oh, God, yes. Considering what we've been through, you betcha.
Hey, and it snowed here last night. Can you believe it?
Oh, I am so sorry. The sun's out today and it's 78, but it's okay.
Please. I know.
I'm sorry, honey.
Last week it was warm. This week it's back to New England winter.
There's no norm.
Cold. Yeah, it's cold as can be. So anyways, it's so wonderful to be here with you tonight because we have one of our best buddies.
We do.
We love this guy. Now, I know you've known him for a number of years. I've known him for, I'm not even going to say how many years. It's so many.
It would date him, not you. It would date him.
My goodness me, I'm honored, and I know you are too, to have a friend like Robert Luca.
Oh, definitely.
He is a very, very unique person.
Mm-hmm.
He has lived through so much with UFO abductions, with the publication of the Andreasson Affair, and the lifting of the veil. Everybody go buy those books. If you don't have them, get them. They're great. And unfortunately, we lost Betty 2 years ago. Beautiful, gorgeous, amazing Betty. We miss her so much. She really started this off with the Andreasson Affair, the most highly documented UFO abduction in the world. So we are very grateful to have our guest on tonight. We're going to be talking about his journey, which is quite something. So Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for mentioning Betty. Thank you for the introduction. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It is always my great pleasure to talk to two such beautiful, intelligent, and talented ladies.
Oh, you sweet talker, you.
Thank you. We'll take that.
Definitely.
So, Bob, it's great having you on our new network, KGRA. It's a whole new audience. Some people may not be familiar with your story, which is extraordinary.
Yes, it is.
I know that you met Betty long ago, and she really changed your life for the better. And
oh, absolutely.
She was the focus of an incredible book called The Andreasson Affair, written by Raymond Fowler. Now, we all had that reprinted. So that you can all buy that book, even though it came out in 1979, 1980 and became a New York Times bestseller. We had it reprinted, and you can get your copy now at Amazon.com. It is an incredible story.
Yes, it is.
But it was not only about, I mean, the book was about the abduction and everything that happened with the beings, as Betty called them. But then other things started to happen. And that's what we're going to be talking about with you, Bob, tonight. Because even before the book was published, you were under scrutiny by lots of different alphabet agencies. So how about if we start there? Is that okay?
Sure. Actually, before the book was published, we started to have these low-flying, black, unmarked military Huey UH-1 helicopters flying over our house in Meriden, Connecticut. And it got to be so often and so low that the lady next door, who became a city councilwoman, started to document the times that these things flew over. I mean, they were rattling the windows. And at first, I wrote to Ray, and he said, well, you're probably in a flight path. Well, okay, we make a long story short, we moved out of that house to Cheshire, Connecticut. Lo and behold, within a week, the flight started over the house in Connecticut. Also, the IRS decided that every year for several years, they were going to help us with our financial statements. So we started to get audited every year for 3 or 4 years. And it actually got to be funny. We got in shouting matches with them. My CPA told them, look, you're harassing my client. They even refused to take my canceled checks as payment for my water, sewer taxes, property taxes, bank. I had to go to the bank and get signed statements. I had to go to each place where I had savings and loans and get statements from the bank. Pure and simple harassment. And when I brought that up publicly with the name of the IRS agent, this time it was a she. She was not happy. On another audit, I refused to give them documents that were more than 7 years old, which is my right. And the auditor said, well, he said, we can audit your ex-wife and get what we need.
Oh.
Well, we didn't get along too well at that time. So I told him, I said, well, you want to get busy now, don't you?
Go right ahead.
It wasn't only them. We were put under surveillance by the FBI. Our lives were intruded on by the CIA. Our telephone had been tapped, and that was verified by Police Lieutenant Larry Fawcett.
Yeah.
The FBI wasn't happy with us either because as a young guy, I used to build street race cars, and I used to street race. So when the FBI started following us, I found that they weren't very good. And several times I got behind them and got the license plate numbers. And when they were run through the police station, the police computers, they came back as unissued. So
now, what does that mean?
Obviously, it means those plates have never been issued to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nobody has a registration with those plate numbers. And then the FBI made a big mistake. I knew it was them. They proved it because one night, as you know, Betty and I, neither one of us like cold weather. So about 1:30 or so in the morning, on a Sunday morning, we went over to my friend's house. He had a big yard, and he let me store my camper there. So we went over, hooked up the camper, went to Florida. Never told a soul. When we got back, my supervisor says, hey, he said, there's 2 guys here on Wednesday from the FBI with photo ID looking for you. So Betty and I went to the federal building in New Haven. and said, well, you're looking for us, but here we are. And the agent came out and talked to us, and he said, well, we can neither confirm nor deny that, our men were there. But if you read the article by Connecticut Magazine, my coworkers all stated, yeah, they were there and they had photo ID. So that wasn't the funny part. I said, well, while we're here, I said, why are you guys tapping our phone? And the agent said, we always get blamed for it. He said, but in your case, it's not us. He says, it's Air Force intelligence. So, and I tend to believe that one because I know Betty and Barney Hill found their phone was tapped, and it was tapped from local Pease Air Force Base, I believe it was.
Uh-huh.
So, that makes sense that the Air Force would be keeping it tapped. So now we had the FBI, the Air Force, the IRS, and God knows, who else. The CIA came later on.
Right.
But there's something funny that I didn't reveal before.
What? Tell us.
I didn't want to hang myself.
Okay.
But anybody that has a scanner radio knows that by the way they're built, they get all the channels from one end to another. And what happens, the government makes the manufacturer stick in what they call blocking diodes, so you cannot hear the government channels. The radio will literally skip over them.
Right.
Well, being the way I am, I got a schematic of my scanner radio and I cut the blocking diodes. And I was listening one day, and this guy was saying, God, he says, this is terrible. He says, I'm up in this tree all afternoon. And he was complaining about it. There's a very strong signal, like it was close by. Well, I didn't think too much of it. I'm thinking, what kind of moron will be up in a tree all day? They had actually built a platform. We had a long driveway, and about halfway down our driveway, on the left-hand side, there's a big maple tree. And they actually put a platform in the tree so someone could stay up there and surveil the house without being seen. That's how far they went with our surveillance.
This was, again, for everybody, this was many years ago. This is back in the 80s. I mean, this is long before we have the technology that we have today that's so advanced. So back then, they would make people apparently sit up in a tree fort.
Oh, good Lord.
And also, we were very open about our experiences, and we were, we weren't afraid of the government. So we knew we were going to have problems because we were told before, you talk about this, there's going to be problems and all. I never thought to that extent, but one night about, I don't know, Betty and I both went to bed about 11 o'clock, and I think it was around 1, maybe 2. I could swear I heard a man's voice in our kitchen. So I said, something's wrong here. And I look at the bottom of the bed on the floor. We had a big Belgian Shepherd that slept there. He got up, his front legs spread out in front of him, and he fell flat on his face. So I said, something's very wrong here. So I reached in my nightstand for my .38 pistol, and that's the last thing I remember. I woke up in the morning with a wicked headache, and Betty said she had a bad headache as well. Well, she went off to work. I went off to work. We came home, and she said, my left arm has been hurting me all day. And I said, that's funny. My right arm's been hurting all day. I'm left-handed. She was right-handed. So we took off our jackets and shirts, and each of us had, in the area like where you usually would get a vaccination, there was 1.25 inch round, brownish, bluish mark with a puncture mark right in the center. The son of a bees drugged us both in our own home. And it's just coming out now that the government has been doing that. And there's a couple of times, I don't let things like that go. And there's a couple of times I put myself a little risk. Ray Fowler and many people worked very hard to try to find out where these helicopters came from. And nobody has been successful. Well, let's say I got lucky. And I found where they were coming from, and it was not, I repeat, was not a military base, which is why people had trouble finding out where they came from. So Betty and I are in this area, and there are signs all over the place. No scanner radios, no cameras, no firearms, all of which I had in my car. So I pull into this place. There was just one helicopter that I could get to. It was a black Huey Cobra, and I wanted to prove that they are really black. So I got close up to it. I took a couple pictures, and for some reason, there was no security. Nobody challenged me. Nobody was out there.
Wow.
So we hopped in the car and got out of there, and I posted the pictures on Facebook. That was highly unusual because, as I said, nobody had found those helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think I'm the only one. I caught the United States Navy Space Weapons Division and the United States Army National Guard. They both hacked my computer within a 48-hour period. But the dummies, all the surveillance they did on us, they knew I was a computer technician back then, and I had some really good tracking software, so I caught them. Put their hand in a cookie jar. And I wrote to the Department of Defense, and I have the documents where they actually admitted it was their computers. And they told me, we will do an investigation. Well, that was in 2004, and I'm glad I didn't hold my breath waiting for that investigation because it ain't happened yet.
Right. They admitted it, which is incredible. And again, you were, I think, the only abductee I know that's had this kind of situation that was smart enough to track this whole thing down and get an answer. And they admitted it. I mean, Chanel, if you can, please put up the document. And that's
they had to, because my software was so good. I had the street address, the name of the building, the name of the computer operator, the number of the computer. I mean, there's no way they could have denied it.
Right. And they say right here in this document, yes, it was us.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
And the only thing I never really found out for sure, outside of what the FBI told me, I never found out for sure who was tapping our telephone.
Right.
But I'm a very curious guy, and I'm just smart enough technically to be a problem for some of these people. A while back, and this is funny, myself and my girlfriend, who I'm not going to name her, but we went to Area 51, and we drove right up to the gate, not the one they show on TV, but the main gate where the employees go in. And we're out there, big sign, no photos, no photography in this area. They had 8 video cameras up on poles. They have sensors in the ground that can detect ammonia from your body. They have microphones. We're out there taking pictures and making a lot of noise. I expected that someone would come out and either confiscate the cameras or the SD cards, and nobody did. I posted a couple pictures on Facebook. There was no security. We couldn't see a guard in sight anywhere. And if this is how it's supposed to be one of the more secure areas in the United States, I got to tell you, the security is piss poor, plain English.
Yeah, not anymore. So I think we were discussing this not too long ago, and it's possible they've moved operations to other places. This has been such a high profile.
Right.
So they probably decided to just take the heat off of that area and go elsewhere with a lot of what they do. But let's back up a minute. I just wanted to ask about the helicopters again, because I think a lot of people don't understand the capabilities of these helicopters. because these helicopters can do a number of things. I mean, flying over your house, they're not just flying over, they can actually look inside. And
Oh, absolutely.
you can
You
get your
know, I
plan.
like to recommend that there's a movie, Patricia, called Blue Thunder.
Right.
And it says in the beginning of the movie, all the technology that you see in that helicopter is in use today. When the movie was made in the 80s, they can see through your house. They can hover at 3,000 feet and hear you talking in a normal voice. Okay. They can check your car and see if you just parked it there or if it's been parked and it's cold. And they have what they call whisper mode, where that helicopter, you won't hear the blade noise.
No.
And this is old technology.
Yeah. So that was so long ago. You can only imagine what they have now.
Oh, God, that's scary.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I did mention to you before how we had a little fun with them. And I want to mention that again because people seem to like it.
Yes, please. That was a fun one.
Mhm.
These things had come over our house so low, I could have hit them with a baseball. Not a problem. Well, I had a friend in the military named Tommy, and he was a cool guy. He said, Bob, he says, let me build you a replica of a surface-to-air missile. So he built me a replica exact in every detail, just like the real thing. So one day, Betty and I are sitting there. It was a Saturday morning, and these helicopters always, for some reason, approached us from the north. Well, when I was flying then, and I had flown over our house a number of times, I knew what they would see, and I knew when they would see it. So we heard the familiar sound of the Huey UH-1 coming. We ran out, and I set up this fake missile on the cement pad behind the house. And then we sat out and waited. As that helicopter cleared our roof, there's no doubt he was looking down at us because that thing turned sideways. I thought he was going to whip the blades off it, made a U-turn in midair and headed back. And I told Betty, I said, that fella's going back where he came from. He's probably going to get a shower and change his underwear. I mean, it had to scare him because I thought he was going to yank the blades off that helicopter. He pulled such a steep turn with it.
I bet. Oh, that was a very realistic. It was a very realistic surface-to-air missile. So,
God.
Absolutely, every detail was exact.
That's great.
So that was fun. And then I called the phone company and I said, our telephone is tapped. I would like my line checked. So they sent this guy down to the house, and this is almost comedic. The guy comes into the house, identifies himself, he grabs the telephone off the wall and tries to unscrew the mouthpiece, and he can't do it. He said, "Oh, this is tight. Nobody's been in here." He says, "We'll check your lines for you." I said, "Okay." He walks out the door, and I said, "Betty," I said, "look at this." I grabbed the telephone, I unscrewed the mouthpiece with no problem. They never, ever reported back to me. They never checked our line. They never did anything. So, you know, it's so hard to really get any information because apparently they have a government has a very long arm. And with the helicopters, a man from the Federal Aviation Administration, General Aviation District Office in Boston. I had sent them many photographs with the approximate altitude, compass heading, time of day, and the FAA could never tell me whose helicopters are. Well, this guy got so interested, he came down from Boston on his own on a Saturday morning. Unfortunately, we weren't home, but he left a note on my door. So that was on a Saturday. So come Monday or Tuesday, I called the FAA, General Aviation District Office, his extension, and I'm told, oh, he's been transferred.
All of a sudden,
Really, where is he? Where has he been transferred to? Oh, we don't know. Well, I might have looked at that as
God,
a coincidence,
so
except
funny.
our trailer got broken into when we were in a campground, and we were in a rural area, so I had to contact the state police. So a state trooper came up, and here's the thing. I was working on computers at the time, so there was computers, there was some firearms, there was Betty's jewelry. The only thing that was taken was 2 drawings Betty had made of the inside bottom of the craft. Now, you know, Betty had an almost photographic mind, and she could draw anything she saw.
exactly.
So those 2 drawings were right. They were all they took. So I explained everything to the state trooper, and he seemed like a nice guy. He said, well, look, he says, if I find anything, he says, I will tell you. Okay, a week goes by, so I go down to the trooper's place, and I said, where's Trooper so-and-so? Oh, he's been transferred. Well, where's he been transferred to? Oh, we don't know. They don't tell us that. So, you know, somebody is reaching out and even getting people transferred in their jobs to avoid me talking to them.
Yeah, they didn't want any information out. I mean, it's really
Absolutely not.
I mean, first of all, the helicopters, not only can they do all these things that you described, but it's pretty intimidating to have those things at, you know, very low altitude over your house. Now, you know,
Definitely.
I was working on the second investigation of the Andreasson Affair with Larry, and I met you guys. 3 days later,
Right.
I had black helicopters over my house, and
Absolutely.
they were so low that the backwash from the blades was bending the trees. I had very tall trees there, and the trees were just bent over from this.
Yeah.
So it became, and it was the middle of the night. So it's also meant to intimidate. That's
Well,
part
I was told that, Patricia. We were doing a lecture in Phoenix, Arizona, and during a break, this guy comes over to me, and I'm sizing him up as he's walking to me. He's like probably mid-30s, buzz cut, haircut, uniform button straight down, exactly matching his belt buckle, black shoes, shiny, hardly any dust on them, well-creased pants. And I said to myself, you know, this guy's military or intelligence.
Dead giveaway.
He told me, he said, we are only sending the helicopters so we do not have to hurt you. So I thanked him, and I went back to my lecture on helicopters.
God.
When we were lecturing at MIT, which you know is in Massachusetts, Dr. Hynek came over to Betty, and at that time I was bothering the military a lot. In fact, the Pentagon told me nobody here will talk to you, but Dr. Hynek rushed up to Betty. And he said, look, he says, stick to philosophy and leave the military out of this. And he walked away quickly, which I thought was nice of him. He was giving us a warning.
Yeah.
Somebody was unhappy with us.
Yes.
But
what people may not know, let me just share this also. Betty was an incredible artist. So not only was she able to recall so much about what she saw with the craft and the beings, but like you said, she was able to reproduce it in the greatest detail. And I have no doubt that's one of the biggest reasons that they were following you guys around forever, is because of her ability to recollect and draw everything, all of the machinery.
Oh, sure.
And it's like,
I'm sure they didn't like that.
Yeah, but the thing that's so sad about this to me is that you offered to sit down with them and give them everything you had, give them copies, and they refused. So they just wanted to keep acting like this.
Absolutely.
Instead, they just keep wanting to be in the shadows and not come out and say, yeah, we're really interested in this. It's so nice of you to offer your time and trouble, but no, they had to do it like this.
God.
Yeah, they do it the hard way. You know, something else that was fantastic, which I still haven't quite figured out. You know, one time we were at your house with some friends, and Betty had talked about her experiences, and I started talking about the helicopters. And sure enough, a Huey showed up at your house
That's right.
as soon as I started talking about the helicopters.
Yes.
So I thought, well, that's a coincidence, right when I started talking, but I
Really?
didn't think much of it.
Yeah, here they
But
are.
a few weeks later, we were doing a private lecture for a dentist in New Britain, Connecticut. And Betty finished her talk. I started talking about the helicopters. Guess what?
There they are.
Huey shows up circling their house. And I said, well, that can't be a coincidence 2 times in a row.
No.
And then we were doing another private lecture for a building contractor in Meriden, Connecticut. I'll be a son of a gun. Betty got done with her talk. I started on the helicopters, and sure enough, it showed up right outside the house. So I don't know what technology they were using, unless it was a oh, crap, I can't even say it today.
Demographic.
But anyways, yeah, and they had to be listening to what we were doing inside the house.
Yes.
To know what time to show up exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there was 10 minutes difference. Right when I started my talk, the helicopter showed up.
Right. Well, and as people have noticed, Bob, as people have noticed in this whole supposed disclosure stuff that's coming from our government, there hasn't been any talk about abductions, really. No. They really don't want to talk about it at all. And when Corey Good was on the show last week, we brought that up. And what he was saying is that it's about crimes against humanity, because really it is. I mean, they're not following any of our laws. And again, there's people you don't know yet who might have been involved, maybe the shadow government that's also in charge of all this new technology that they're keeping from us. So it is really something that they don't want to be held accountable for. But clearly, drugging people in their homes is a bad thing. And
I don't think so.
And there was no reason.
My feeling back then, my feeling was, it's too bad I passed out when I did, because I don't care who it was, I would have shot him for being in my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And today, same thing goes today. We don't have that problem anymore, but I have no respect for those people for what they're doing. They're breaking the laws that we have to abide by. And I would just as soon kick their butt or shoot them or whatever is required if they come into my house, and I would do it.
Well, and again, look at what they did. They used actually a 2-step process to put you under. One is they had to send gas into your house because it affected your dog.
Aerosol, correct.
Yeah. Then they used, once you guys were out, then they took it a step further and used injections. You don't know what that chemical was they used. And how did they know you weren't allergic to it or something? You could have died from it.
Or even if it's long term.
Exactly.
Yeah, long term effect. Exactly. I mean, today we're finding out, these side effects from drugs we never knew existed.
I understand the truth.
So it's really troubling on so many levels that you and Betty were treated this way over such a long period of time. And I give you credit, because you made the most of it. You did try to approach them and say, look, we're here, let's talk. You did that more than once, and yet you were met with a closed door. So it really shows. And today, here they're doing it again. The Pentagon comes out and gives us a report. There are no ETs. We don't have any crap. Oh, please. Right. Maybe they don't. There are places.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the duration of our surveillance was from 1979 to 2004.
That's a long time.
You imagine what that cost? I would have taken the money.
Why not? You've earned it.
Yeah, really. God in heaven.
I mean, they are so foolish in doing what they're doing. And plus they're, you were talking about intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
Betty and I were on Route 2 in Massachusetts, which is very rural.
Yes, it is.
They knew where we were going. We were going to visit Becky. They had 2 helicopters parked in a field below my level of sight. When we got to that area,
by the way.
He took off
1 second, Bob.
over my car.
For everybody who's watching, that's a picture of Becky Andreasson, Betty's daughter, who was a part of the abduction experience back in the 60s with her. And she's there with a mock-up of Quasgar, that was the name of the alien leader who came to their home that night. So go ahead, Bob. Just wanted to introduce Becky.
I was going to say they passed over my car at less than 50 feet. And that's a little intimidating. They were just in front of me and at about a 50-foot level. So I gave them the old single finger wave. I don't have anything against those guys. They're just following orders. They're doing what somebody told them to do.
Right.
But they can be intimidating. The only thing is, I think I'm too dumb to get intimidated.
Well, no comment. I'm backing out of this one.
But again, here's the other thing I want to say about both you and Betty, and Becky was involved in this too. When I went to your lectures and your presentations, what I saw happen was it wasn't just you guys talking about the events that happened, which were fascinating. And you both did excellent presentations for the audience. But you guys uplifted people. I mean, you gave people hope that there was so much more out there. You told amazing experiences. And as we all know, Betty had tremendous faith in God. And that was a big part of what was shared here. I mean, it was not just ETs and the blue book that they gave Betty, and Becky saw that book also, but it was all about uplifting your consciousness and being a better person and understanding there's more out there. It's not all about us. But you both did a beautiful job of sharing all of this to the point where people would better themselves as a result of listening to you both. And I know
thank you.
It's true. And Becky was a part of that as well. Not as strongly as you guys were. She was still raising kids at the time. But Becky was very special in her own right. I mean, she was able to photograph orbs and angels and all kinds of amazing things. She was able to read angelic script and speak it. And she had amazing talent. And when the beings came and took Betty, they put everybody else in stasis. But Becky kept getting out of it. She kept jumping out of stasis, which they didn't know what to do with her. It was very funny, the whole experience that she remembered. But that was Becky. I mean, that was totally Becky. She was so talented in a different way than Betty. But again, uplifting people was the message.
I'm like I said, I'm a curious guy. Becky has taken a lot of unusual photographs.
Yes.
So I went and took my pictures right next to her at the same time at the same area. Stuff showed up on her camera, but not mine.
Yeah.
So we swapped cameras and we did it over. She would get that stuff on her camera all the time. Nothing showed up for me. So it had to do something with her psychic ability, I guess, or
yes.
Oh,
amazing. And she also had implants. You guys determined she had implants, and then she got sick of it one day and she set one of them on fire.
Oh my God.
Yes. That was a little odd in that respect.
It was one of them that she started pulling it out of her foot, and then she just took a lighter, set it on fire.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But anyway, two lovely ladies that we miss. But again, you did such an amazing job with and sharing this in with an open heart. And also you
She was a sweetheart.
Yeah, she was. And you didn't allow these intimidating factors to stop you. You kept going, and I know it was hard at times because I know Becky got very afraid. I mean, Betty got very afraid at certain times. Some of it was so overwhelming. I mean, I remember once visiting you at your campground, and we walked past your car and the interior light was on. And when we got to your camp trailer, we said, "Hey, your light's on in your car," and you guys knew you didn't leave it on. So right away,
Yeah.
you know, it was off and
Oh
running.
yeah. Well, in Florida, we were going to Pompano Beach, but I used to make the drive in one day. But this time there was construction, there was accidents, so it was very late. We're many hours on the road. We got to Lake Worth, and I said, "Look, I'm going to pull into a campground here. We'll get a night's sleep, get a shower in the morning, and be good to go." Well, Betty and I are in the car. We had a car that fortunately was a hatchback, and it folded down so you could make beds out of it. And this, I can only describe what looked like a disco ball, popped through the door on the driver's side, passed right in front of both of us, and went out the other side.
My goodness.
So I thought, well, that's kind of paranormal, a little strange, but I didn't think much of it. Well, we went to sleep. In a campground, you know, Florida, all the roads are east, west, north, south, like a grid. When we went to pull the car in, the compass was said due north, and the clock was right on with the radio station. Well, about 2:00 in the morning, I had to use the restroom, and I get up, and there's a black Cadillac with New York plates parked behind us, and at a 90-degree to us. And I thought, somebody trying to beat the campground out of their fee or whatever. I go to the bathroom, I come back, and as I'm walking to the left side of this Cadillac, all 4 doors open at once, just like one door. Perfect timing. And these guys get out, and they're typical, I hate to say it, men in black. They had on black suits, black shoes, black hat, rimmed hat, white shirt, and a black tie, and they all looked Asian. And as I'm walking by, they're staring at me. So I turn around, I'm staring back at them. And I didn't feel any fear or anything. These guys looked like a good wind would have taken off with them. Very, very thin, very slight build. And then as I walk past the front of the car, the 4 of them walk around the car like musical chairs.
Yeah.
They get back in on opposite sides of the car, and they slam the door all at once. I heard one noise, and just one noise when the doors closed. And for the longest time, I wondered, what the heck was that all about? And we couldn't get an investigator then, but I did the best I could. I took a compass and walked around the car with it. When it got to the point where that disco ball entered, the compass needle would spin away from the car, where the rest of the car, the needle would be attracted to the metal car. Also, my compass now pointed almost east, and it was pointing due north in the night when we parked it. And my radio, the time on my digital clock, no longer matched the radio. And I talked to some electrical engineers, and the only thing they could come up with is some kind of a electromagnetic pulse. So I don't know. I don't know what the disco ball was. I don't know what the men in black were. They never touched me. They never said a word to me. They never approached me. They just stared at me. Maybe I'm not funny looking. I don't know what the hell the story is. But we also had a case in the campground in Connecticut where Betty saw a blue orb. And she said, I have to go outside. And I said, no, you're not going outside. And then, make a long story short, I fell asleep. Betty went outside. And 2 oak trees.
Didn't listen to you, did she?
2 oak trees.
We don't do that.
Perfectly healthy oak trees just split and fell over. And we grabbed, the next day, we told Ray Fowler about it. We grabbed samples from the tree where the break was, and he sent them to an arborist?
Yeah.
Person that works on trees.
Right.
And they said they were perfectly healthy. Nothing wrong with them. Strong oak trees, and they just split like a matchstick. So, and
That's
that was the
weird.
night she had a visitation. So
makes
I
sense.
don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of questions still out there that are unanswered about your adventures with all of this. But
Oh, absolutely.
it's like
They
your
knew.
adventures, if I can just say this, your adventures with the extraterrestrials also continued past the Andreasson Affair, and that's why you have a second book,
Yeah.
The Lifting of the Veil, which again we highly recommend to everybody, which follows you throughout all these years. And it's a continuation of the story. But you guys really had a lot of courage to continue to report on this to everybody. And you were both of you very honest. You gave the facts. Here are the facts. This is what happened. If you didn't know something, you'd say it. We don't know what this is.
Well, we both felt that the people should know, what is going on. Hey, I to this day, I don't think the government cares so much if we notice extraterrestrials. I believe the real reason is technology, because if we get their technology, we don't need the oil companies. We wouldn't need the grid. We wouldn't need big pharma. And I'll give you an example. When I worked in Florida, I was a research technician on hydrogen fuel cells. The company I worked for developed a unit for your home. You could put it in a basement. It was about the size of a refrigerator, made absolutely no pollution, zero. And it made heat, hot water, and electricity. We had it. The prototypes have been tested and retested. We were getting ready to go into production, and ExxonMobil stopped by. Now, we thought they just stopped in, look over the company, whatever. Well, within 30 days, we were told, when we went to work, we were told to go to the Ramada Inn, to a conference room. We get in there. We're met by their attorneys. We all got fired. We had to sign non-disclosure acts, and they bought up the company, and they have shelved that technology. They do that. They buy these technologies so they own them. They prevent them from coming out on the market, because with this thing, you didn't need oil. You didn't have to buy oil to heat your house or make electricity or have hot water. And the son of a guns, that was in 2000, and you cannot find those anywhere. And I know they were ready to go. I worked on them.
It's just the saddest thing. Everybody in this leftist establishment is screaming climate change, this and that. And, how we have to clean up the earth. But we have the technology. It's just not being released. So,
we need to clear up the government.
Yeah. I mean, the technology is right here.
We don't have a government. We have a bunch of clowns in Washington, and I don't think they could govern their own butts successful.
It's very scary today to see what's happening just in this country alone, let alone the world. But let's
be honest. People aren't going to like this, but we got a moron for a president. I mean, come on, the man can't put two sentences together. He can't chew gum and walk. He falls down. He can't talk straight. I don't know where people think we're going to go with him, but I know he's driving this country into the ground.
God.
And it's a fact. I mean, even I don't care if you're dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, you got to look at facts. This guy is ruining the country.
Well, yeah, look at our
lack
of a border and so many other things. Look at what's happening in Massachusetts and Arizona.
Oh, God, yes.
Other border states. It's very, very, very
incredible.
Cool. But what is wonderful is that we know it. What is good about this is there are people who have come to understand this and really see what's going on. But all of this, the UFO stuff, when people say, they've been followed and tracked and people have been murdered and for other reasons, I always say this has been going on in the UFO field for many years, longer than stuff. So
Bill Schneider, I have no doubt he was murdered.
Yes, there's been a lot of talk about that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Now that I've said this, Patricia, should I watch for helicopters tonight?
Probably.
you know what? If I were you, I'd keep that camera handy. So
You've got another book coming.
that's right. So make sure you're
The other thing,
documenting all of it.
have we got a few minutes left?
I think we do. Let's see. Not many. 5
Okay.
minutes till wrap.
Okay. One thing that was strange, they knew where we were all the time. Let me give you an example. Betty and I decided to go to Florida, to West Palm Beach. On the way down, we stopped at Rockledge, right near Cape Canaveral. And I said, what the heck? Let's get a campground. We'll stay here, relax a little bit. And then a day or two, we'll go down to West Palm. We weren't there 20 minutes. And the lady from the campground comes down and said to Betty, "Oh, your son just called." Well, nobody knew where we were. You know, I mean, we didn't tell anybody.
No.
On another occasion, we were at the airport in Hartford, and we were going to fly to Chicago. There was Betty, myself, and Officer Larry Fawcett. I get to the desk, and the guy says, "Oh, Mr. Luca's boarded the plane already." I said, "No, I'm Mr. Luca from Cheshire, Connecticut." I thought maybe it was a relative or something. "Oh, no, Mr. Luca from Cheshire, Connecticut has boarded the plane already." So Larry says, he says, they're doing that, Bob, to try to intimidate you, to scare you. So I make a long story short, we straighten it out. I get on the plane. Nobody was in my seat. And that happened many times. They always knew where we were. We drove down to Florida when we bought the condo, and it's a gated community. We showed our card, we went in, and we were followed by a car that came in right behind us, and it was a woman driving it. Well, I said to Betty, "God, I think they're following us even here." So I made a couple of quick turns so that as we came back, she was going one direction, we were going the opposite direction. And it's Florida, it's hot, windows are open. And we heard her clearly. She says, "They're here, they're here." I mean, come on, they need to train their people a little better.
I guess that, yeah.
Oh, Lord.
This is just, it's really incredible that you were treated this way, and yet you maintained such a good attitude throughout all of it. And
oh, my God.
Well, it was kind of funny. Another time we left the house, and one of their drivers picked us up right away. And we're going up the street, and I told Buddy, I said, "Damn it, they're right behind us." I said, "Watch this." So I went up the street, made a turn, and I went to this churchyard, and it says no exit. But there was an exit that I knew of. So I went out that exit, turned around, come back down the hill, and Betty and I end up facing this car. And the guy, you could see his face, I swear to God, his face turned red and he took off.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, they weren't either. I hope they were just newbies that they had following us, because that's the best thing. They're a lot of trouble.
Oh, God. Well, Bob, we've come to the end of our show, unfortunately. We could talk to you all night, as you are aware. So we've got to wrap this up.
Great fun.
Love to have you back. And everybody will be back next week. We've got Crystal Skulls for you all the way to the UK next week. Don't miss it. And make sure you get Bob's and Betty's books, The Andreasson Affair and The Lifting of the Veil.
Right.
A lifting of the veil. So again, thanks everybody for joining us. Spread the word about our shows, Supernatural Girls. And until then, we'll see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. And good night, PK.
Good night, Robert.